Natalie, welcome to our little podcast booth here. It's the last day of the Customer Success Festival in London. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me.
Not at all. Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I've had a really good, nearly 2 days meeting some peers, understanding what they're doing, understanding that our challenges aren't just our challenges, and they're pretty extensive across different orgs, different businesses, different industries. And just been really nice to see people in person and connect on that on a customer success level rather than just seeing people at events in the industry that I work in, which is legal tech.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a real melting pot of different different people, different companies, and it really brings that kind of like very nuanced perspective to, I can. Working in marketing, I know it's very easy to get tunnel vision and very, you do things in a certain way, and it definitely, so it's a great event. And you actually spoke earlier today, didn't you? You gave a session.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I did a session on sales and CS collaboration. So Litera, the company that I work for, has sort of amalgamated and acquired sort of 10 companies in about 2.5 years. So we had a real kind of process and mindset issue within the sales and CS org in terms of, different people came from different products that had different processes, and different people in different organizations that were now under the Litera banner had different roles and responsibilities. So what was an account manager in one company didn't mean the same thing now at Litera. So that, and then also like who is responsible for what part of the customer journey was a real issue. So we've done a lot of work over the last 12 months around that. So I was just sort of presenting to the audience kind of what we've found, what challenges we've had along the way, and what improvements have been made. And I think that was really key in terms of improvements have been made, but it's not some sort of like collaborative nirvana. It's a iterative process that is going to keep evolving and changing dependent on the people that you have and the processes that you have.
I mean, it sounds to me like you've gone through, I don't want to say hypergrowth, but you've gone through a huge amount of change recently, and there are a lot of moving parts. But from like a leadership perspective, you're a director of customer success. How you've got to create, creating alignment between, so you spoke about alignment between sales and customer success. How would you say that you can kind of, in the last few years, build a culture that kind of emphasises that alignment between sales and CS?
Yeah, of course.
Like you said, you had account managers.
We didn't have a culture, and I think that was the thing. It's like we've had to build the culture from the ground up, because I came into Litera through an acquisition. So many people found themselves in a role in a company that they hadn't applied for.
Challenging.
It's been pretty challenging. Yeah, it's been like a whirlwind, a really interesting one, because there are lots of challenges, but if there aren't challenges and there aren't problems, you can't solve any problems. So in terms of culture, we basically had to have a look at the business and understand on a much broader level outside of sales and CS, what are the core fundamentals that we see across the business that make the business ours, that really contribute. So there was a sort of Litera-wide kind of purpose realignment. So telling people internally, this is the purpose of the business. For a lot of people that had joined the business through acquisition, it was a bit like, what does this massive company that's just bought us do?
Very uncertain. And you understand people sort of
they're losing their way, and also you do find
confidence a little bit.
Find people that are it's quite jarring insofar as you've come from a much smaller company. I found that myself. It was a startup, so I came from a company where I'd been the 20th employee to suddenly being one of 1,000 people. It's suddenly pretty confusing. Yeah. It's it's an odd one. But so there was a sort of company-wide strategy to kind of restate the purpose of the company, what we were trying to be in the market and to our customers. So ultimately, we wanted to amplify impact within the legal industry. So essentially helping our customers, so law firms and corporate teams, be able to do their jobs better, more efficiently using the tools that we offer. That has then sort of trickled down to the sales and CS org through, and in terms of the collaboration piece, in the international team, which is what I head up from CS, myself and our VP of international are really closely aligned. We understand what the other's trying to achieve, and we have to appreciate kind of what the priorities are for each other and also how they work together. And also we've had to really, I'm not, like, that relationship hasn't always been smooth. Like we can be quite combative. That sounds like we get on very well, but like we do really fight our corner. And I think
because you have your priorities that you would like to execute fairly,
and
they will have their
So trying to align on that has been, I think, actually just a really, we've ended up being able to set a really good example of when two different people in two different functions that do have slightly different priorities can fundamentally like work together for like the greater good in terms of Litera's purpose in the market. And I think it's a real like leading by example. Like we are doing what we want our teams to do. We're like over communicating really, like making sure when we're talking to customers, the whole account team, whether that be the account manager who does renewals, the account director who looks at new opportunities, or the CSM, is completely joined up. So we ensure that whatever customer meeting you have, the other two within the account team are added as optional.
Right.
So there's always, you don't have to like join it. You might not be able to, you might not want to, it might not be relevant, but you know the conversation's happening. And one of my massive bugbears when I kind of first joined Litera is that you so often came across, you talk to a customer and they go, oh, I spoke to your colleague like, X in sales yesterday. And you'd be like, oh, right, yeah, of course you did. Yeah, they told me all about it. And then you're just like, cheers.
Yeah.
But that, to be fair, was happening both ways. Like CS were doing it as well. So I do think there is a...
I'm quite glad you said that though, because I think when people talk about, particularly in customer success, about cross-departmental collaboration, it's always, oh, we didn't get this from the product team.
Yeah.
So, and actually, let's be real. Like, I think we can all speak to that. We all probably do a bit of that ourselves.
I think completely. Yeah. I think
it's refreshing to hear you say that.
I do think CS sometimes have a bit holier than thou outlook. Like, but we're the customer advocate. Like, nothing we does is against like the customer's best interests, and you kind of have to go, maybe we should just double check sometimes.
Yeah.
So so I'd say like the fact that we at the director level and also at the C-suite level, the CRO and CCO are completely aligned in terms of how we need to be working together. That's made a huge improvement on then the behaviours of the team in terms of just getting to know their sales colleagues better and just over communicating essentially.
No, that's brilliant. I think we were talking about different priorities between your sales and CS. Like having had a few quite recent conversations about the sort of sales and CS alignment. How did you find that focusing on sort of sales? Okay, probably a bit of an unfair basic statement, but usually focused on acquisition and not always short term, but where CS is traditionally seen as like more long term retention. That's a very, very simplistic way of saying it. But in your experience, do you think that have you found that focusing on how have you introduced sort of outcomes based thinking and trying to get sales or an account management thinking more on outcomes? Have you found that? Rather than sort of letting revenue and acquisition just influence the sort of customer relationship.
So that's a really good point, and I think we're kind of lucky insofar as like partly like sales had to care about outcomes, because with so law firms are our core market in the US, especially like the biggest law firms in the world. Like we've got like 100% market share of the top 100 global law firms, but not across every product. So our growth strategy is really, really based on selling more to our existing customers. So sales, whether they like it or not, have to be outcome based, because they're not going to be able to sell anything if it doesn't work, because it's not like they can go after loads of new logos, especially in America. Like Litera is an American company and has like very much saturated the market. There's white space everywhere in the different product suites we have. We have over 20 products, but yeah, I know it's a lot. But there's more. The risk that we see around that sort of quite short term, selling is in EMEA and APAC, where there is the opportunity just to get a new customer. So, but still, it's very much a sort of land and expand model. So, new revenue isn't a new customer; it's often a new product within an existing customer.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So kind of.
Which ties back to CS being a growth driver.
Yeah, so basically sales have had to care about outcomes because fundamentally they won't make any money.
It's not optional, yeah, exactly.
It's sort of not optional, which is like, that's a very convenient position.
It makes your life a lot easier.
It does, but also that's quite there is still a mindset change that needs to happen there in like getting them to appreciate that they're not, that we've put a lot of governance around the handover process in terms of ensuring that we have clear, that we have clear outcomes and we really understand why the customer is buying the product in the first place and what problem it's going to solve, because there are still pockets and there are still instances where, sales still just want the sale and they're not that bothered about the renewal or expansion or whatever it might be. So it's, it helps that the model that we have means they do have to care if they really want to excel. But also there is still cases where, you're always going to do maybe not the best deals to get the revenue. And we don't sort of, it's not a great place to be, but you understand the reasons behind that, the drivers behind that. And to be honest, like every product that we have is useful to a law firm. Like law firms are very, very similar. Like it's not like, God, this would never work in this company compared to this company. Like they would all work in all companies. So whether or not that firm felt that they had an issue that was being resolved by a product that they've somehow bought because they've been sold it, we can always find a use case for it, because ultimately we work with law firms and there is always a use case. But obviously, ideally, sales would focus on exactly what problems being solved with the product in the first case.
That's so interesting. I think touching on the, I just want to sort of circle back to the, you're talking about the sale, the handover and the importance of really ironing that out. Like, I wanted to ask you, in your experience, what kind of processes or perhaps really sort of fruitful communication channels have you found that have been just contributed to a more cohesive, sort of smooth, seamless, whatever customer journey, making sure that it's rock, that kind of handover is rock solid, really.
Yeah, no.
Not even just during the conversion at that part, but post sale, post value realization.
Yeah, it's a few things. So from a process point of view and the whole customer journey, we quite earlier in the year, it became very apparent that like there was a huge amount of confusion around like who was responsible for what in the customer journey. Like account managers go, no, I look after renewals, then CSMs go, no, I look after renewals, because depending on where they came from, they might have looked after renewals.
Across the 10 companies you mentioned.
Yeah, and also that's like, we did 10 acquisitions within 2 years, but we'd done acquisitions before that, and we've done acquisitions since, just not at quite that speed.
Yeah.
So it's like a real mixture of different roles with different responsibilities, meaning different things in different companies.
Yeah.
So
speaking in today, you would find like customer success managers or heads of customer success all doing sort of
slightly different things.
Not entirely. It's not
It's not completely clear cut.
Yeah.
So we did a RACI document. So like responsibilities, accountability. If someone needs to be consulted or informed. So basically, we mapped out the whole customer journey and put who was responsible, who needed to be accountable, who needed to be consulted, who needed to be informed for every stage of the customer journey. So it was like explicit that you knew what your peers that job title, what they did. And then from a sales to CS handover, particularly, we kind of took all those acquisitions as a massive kind of bonus, really, and combined the best, what we think are the best processes across the board into one sort of product agnostic process.
Oh, okay.
So like, this product, we're really good at this, and this product, we're really good at this part. And in this world, it was always completely normal for the CSM to be introduced pre-sale. So we kind of took what was working before in the product only basis, sort of producted them to make them a bit more like agnostic, and then made one customer experience regardless of product.
I see. Oh, that's a really interesting way of going about it.
And like, there will obviously be product-specific questions and queries and technical parts within that, but the steps that the CSM takes and the steps that the salesperson takes in that handover and then into implementation are fundamentally the same regardless of the product. And what we've done, which has been hugely impactful, I think, in terms of ensuring that sales are focused on outcomes, is if in that handover process they're unable to explicitly say what problems the customer is facing that this product is solving and what the main drivers for the sale were in terms of like what are the outcomes they are expecting, that subscription is immediately flagged as at risk.
Right. So is that quite common then to find you don't have you don't have that vital information at that point? Because
we were
that's probably quite a bit frustrating. To inherit that kind of.
I think it's a case of often, and you get this when you have a number of products, you kind of get sort of platform deals. So we were finding that certain products were like essentially like lobbed in to negotiate the rate by saying, we could include this product as well. So you then tended to get some products that actually didn't have their own real use case, or you find kind of solution selling. So the salesperson has sold the solution to the customer, and the customer is like, oh my God, this technology is amazing, but they haven't actually identified what problem it's solving specifically in that firm. So it might be like, yes, this is an amazing tool, and they're really sold on this tool and that like it looks great, but like what in that company is it going to do and change? Because actually we do find that there are some products that we have especially that are very dependent on like the type of work that they do, and often we do get customers that are like, oh well, we thought we'd find use cases, but like we haven't, or it doesn't quite do what they thought it might do, but it's because there was never a really clear purpose as to like what is the problem you're solving and what does the product do to solve that problem, instead of like, here's a platform that could be useful. So we found that to be really useful, having that sort of governance around risk and ensuring that from the off there is a metric or a problem that the product needs to solve that the CSM can then work with to ensure that it does. And also then going back to the customer, if the customer is saying, we're not happy with this, or if there's any issues or there's concerns around the customer churning, if you know what they said that they wanted to solve and you know that you're doing that, it's very easy to show the value realization to the customer themselves.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. I had no idea. That's such an interesting case study for you to
Oh.
Thank you so much.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you what significant challenges you had, but, but there we go.
Literally all challenges. Nothing that was easy. Basically, it feels like in the last year. I mean, it's been an
huge learning curve, though.
Yeah, amazing to be part of, and especially I had quite an interesting part to Litera, and then we got acquired, and I went on maternity leave straight away. And then I came back, and it was like, surprise! You have a different job, and you work for this massive company.
Oh, right. Just what you needed.
And that was June last year.
Oh,
so,
okay.
It's been a huge learning curve. But it's been, like I said, without any challenges and on any problems, you can't solve anything. And I feel like it's been great to be able to instigate change so quickly that's made quite a clear difference within the organisation in quite a short period of time.
Absolutely.
And also amongst the teams, the teams were very disjointed and very kind of jaded by the whole acquisition experience. Even if they were legacy Litera, they were jaded from the fact that everything had been put on hold because they'd been busy acquiring companies, and they suddenly got all these different people that were sort of doing their job as well. And
I mean, that must be so difficult to manage on a senior leadership level.
And on a human level as well. I've just got.
You don't want to have loads of your direct reports feeling
really
burnt out and
overwhelmed and confused about their purpose. So it's been the team that I have now and that we have now in customer success. We have 43 in the customer success org globally. Is not just it's made an impact within the business and on revenue and customer sentiment and customer happiness, but our employees are much happier. There is a drastic improvement in sort of just vibrancy amongst the team in terms of people feeling energized, wanting to work with their sales colleagues, understanding why we are all there doing it, understanding why Litera's bought loads of companies. So it's been a challenge, but definitely not finished yet. There'll always still be things that need to be ironed out, and kind of 2024 I think we'll be looking more at tying renewal revenue and revenue into the CS org, and also using formalizing sort of customer success leads.
I see. Okay.
So at the moment it's very much that's great, thanks so much, if customer success find a lead or an opportunity for a salesperson, but we want to sort of formalize that a bit more and actually give sort of money, essentially, and bonuses towards those CSMs for the leads that they generate to try and get them thinking in a bit more of a revenue and growth mindset.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, it's the fact is that you come here today and yesterday at the Customer Success Festival, and you can talk. It shows speaks to how far Litera, it's. I know you said it's not out the woods yet, and there's obviously so much more to do. But the fact it's just very encouraging though that you're. I mean, just quite a mad last year.
Yeah.
That sounds bad,
it really has been. But it has improved drastically, like I said, in sort of business outcomes, but also employee engagement, employee happiness. Our biggest achievement we felt in the org is that we had a 24-point swing in our eNPS, so our employer NPS within customer success from Q1 to Q3. And that's like, as a CS leadership team, that's sort of like the thing that we're most proud about in terms of like really changing around that internal sentiment within the employees.
Oh, well, brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Natalie. That's absolute gold. I think people who haven't been able to attend your talk today, listeners at home, I'm sure they'll be really be able to take a lot from that. And lots of people who might be going, I mean, maybe not quite, the companies might have acquired 10 different companies in a year. I think it's quite a unique situation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like really vital takeaways from what you just talked about. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be really happy to hear about this, and hopefully it will help their workload as well. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Not at all.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, the festival is just winding down to a close. But really, thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you.